Yeah, good evening, everyone. It's Nikki Wakefield, Careers Hub Lead at Oxfordshire LEP. In terms of Oxfordshire LEP and who we are, in our team, we work with 49 schools and colleges across Oxfordshire, so that includes mainstream schools and also special schools as well, and support those schools in terms of their careers provision. So ensuring that every young person in those schools and colleges is getting all the information that they need to then go on to do to their best next step. So they're finding out information about careers, the different pathways that are available, etc. The local labour market, understanding what that looks like, so they can pull all of that information together and make the right decision, whether it's coming to options, whether it's coming to what to do post 16 and post 18 as well. So part of that obviously is ensuring apprenticeships are a big part of that, a big part of what we're really wanting to ensure that everyone understands how apprenticeships work, how they run, and the fantastic opportunities that we have across the county. And it's really important that yourselves as parents and carers have this information as well, so you can have those really meaningful conversations at home with your young people about what they want to do and what's the right route and the right pathway for them. And it's really important as well to understand from an employer's perspective why the apprenticeship route is so valuable for them and the types of technical qualifications it can lead to young people having that can help them going on into the working world. I've already mentioned that we're really lucky in Oxfordshire. We have such a really vibrant labour market, some really exciting innovative industries such as space, life sciences. We also have a really strong creative sector, transformative technologies, including things like robotics and AI. Sorry, I think I was just muted then. Sorry. So I'm back. So yeah, we have a really exciting labour market. We have apprenticeships right across that labour market as well. So at the moment, we've got our award winner from last year's apprenticeship award is actually a technical scientist working at the University of Oxford, and she actually worked in the COVID vaccine team, actually on the team that developed the first AstraZeneca vaccine. So really just, you know, you can't get anything that's more relevant and cutting edge. Also, we've got apprentices in Oxford Space Systems, working in technical engineering, developing components that are sent off then to satellites up into space. We've got great training providers like Ignite Sports that support children in terms of sports coaching and going on into careers in those areas. We've got a vibrant visitor economy that includes like hospitality, retail, and sort of tourist destinations like Blenheim Palace and the university itself too. And they have a huge range of apprenticeship opportunities, everything. So for example, at Blenheim Palace, everything from marketing to actually working with animals. And then also there are those traditional careers that in the past we would have always thought that you needed to go into higher education, such as law and accountancy. Now obviously with a degree apprenticeship, there's some great routes into those careers through that as well. If you can just move on to the next slide, please, Eleanor. Just one other thing I wanted to flag before I hand it over to tonight's presenters was please go and visit our Find Your Future platform, which is on our website, on Oxfordshire LEP's website. And there you can find our apprenticeship dome. And if you go into that dome, you'll find a whole range of information about, including a parents and carers guide. There's a quiz that you can do on there about apprenticeships, trying to dispel some of the myths that there are about those. There's links to various websites which you can find out about vacancies. There's information about which subjects link up to which courses and which future careers and apprentices. So really useful space to go to really find out further information. So really urge you to go and have a look on that later and explore that as well, alongside your young people as well. Explore that together. So tonight we are joined by Ellie Knight, who's currently an apprentice at the University of Oxford, and also alongside Ellie we've got Helen Johnson, who actually works for the University of Oxford and runs the apprenticeship programme there, and we've got Jane Phipps, who is working at Abingdon Witney, who are the training provider who deliver the training element of Ellie's apprenticeship. So they'll be talking to you later on about all of that. About one, Ellie will be talking about her experience, but the others will be talking talking about how they support Ellie through that experience as well. But before then, I'm going to pass over to Catherine Jones, who works for ASK, which is the Apprenticeship Knowledge Support Service. And they actually work with all of our schools across Oxfordshire. They go into our schools, they talk to our students about the apprenticeship opportunities that are available, and give them all the information they need. It's a free service, which the vast majority of our schools take up. So we thought it'd be great for you to hear from them as well, so you can hear that same messaging that they're getting from when they're actually in school. So I'm going to hand over to Catherine, and I'll catch up with you all at the end when we go through the Q&A. Thank you.
Catherine, sorry, you're on mute. Sorry, I was trying to unmute.
Oh, there we go. Right, okay. Yeah. Right. Oh, apologies for that. I'm Catherine Jones, and I'm here today on behalf of the Education and Skills Funding Agency, which is a part of the Department for Education. And I'm here to talk to you about apprenticeships. So as parents and carers, we know that you're keen to hear about all the options that are available to your child so you can support them in their decision making. And if you're here as a student listening to this, you might be thinking, well, what can I do next? So apprenticeships are a great option, and that's what tonight's all about, really. So it's really important to research all the options that are available to you. And you may wonder why we're talking about it this week, but as Nikki said, it's National Apprenticeship Week 2022, and it's on until next week, the 13th of February. And it's bringing together everybody that's passionate and interested in apprenticeships to celebrate the value and benefit that they can bring. So what I'm going to cover this evening is really important, because even if you know what you're planning to do after school, plans can change, and it's important to be aware of all the options that are available so that you can make informed choices. Now, apprenticeships have changed quite significantly over the last few years, and there are some brilliant opportunities available. Through apprenticeships, as Nikki said, you could even now achieve a degree if you wanted to. But I will tell you more about that later on. So for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to explain more about the range of apprenticeship roles that are available, different levels, how you find an apprenticeship, and what you would do next to start searching and applying. Okay. So what are apprenticeships? Well, apprenticeship is a real job, and it's with a real employer, and the apprentice will be working full-time and also studying towards a qualification. So for instance, you might be an apprentice working for Sky as a journalist, and you might be studying for a qualification in journalism. You're paid a salary because it's a job, so you earn a real wage just like any job, and it can be a good salary too. But the salary of an apprentice will vary from employer to employer, and legally the employer must pay a minimum apprenticeship wage, which is £4.30 an hour. Now, that is lower than the national minimum wage, but it does recognise that some people are going into their first job with little or no experience. But the good news is that lots of employers do pay a lot more than the national minimum wage for apprentices. Now, it's important to remember that if your child comes across an apprenticeship they're interested in, not to be put off by the pay if it's initially low, because there's room for progression and working your way up to the top of an organisation. And lots of employers will increase this as they achieve milestones through their apprenticeship. Because it's a real job, you get a contract of employment just like any job, and so you're entitled to holiday pay, annual leave, same as any member of staff. You'd spend 80% of the work time working on the job, doing the role, and the other 20% of the time off the job, studying or working towards a qualification. And this element, the off the job element of the apprenticeship, takes place with the training provider, and we're going to hear from a training provider later who will explain from their side what it involves. And their job's really to help the young person achieve the qualification and make sure they complete their apprenticeship. And training providers can be colleges, universities, or independent training providers who deliver the teaching element of the course. Apprenticeships typically take between 1 to 4 years. Some go up to 6 years, like the solicitor. And the minimum duration is 12 months. So that's the minimum time, but it can be anything between 1 to 4 years or even up to 6 years. There are lots of different, exciting and interesting apprenticeships available. There are 600 different apprenticeship standards, which means that there's well over 1,500 different job roles available through the apprenticeship scheme. So, as I said before, it's a real job, and that means there are responsibilities, and it's not an easy option. Holding down a full-time job and studying takes a great amount of skill and commitment, and it won't be right for everyone. But again, it's up to you to make those decisions for yourself. So in terms of the levels then, there are different levels with apprenticeships. So if we can have the next slide, please. So we've got intermediate, advanced, higher and degree apprenticeships. And these are at level 2, level 3, and as you can see on the slides, level 4, 5, 6, and 7. So it is possible to go from an intermediate apprenticeship and at level 2 all the way up to level 7, which is master's level. Now, if you look across the table and you can see the equivalent educational level, that will tell you that the level that the apprenticeship equates to. So, for instance, an intermediate apprenticeship is the equivalent of 5 GCSE passes, grade A star to C, but now it's grade 4 to 9. And an advanced apprenticeship is the equivalent of 2 A levels or a level 3 diploma like a BTEC or an international baccalaureate. And then you can see the same with the higher and the degree apprenticeships. Now, it's really important not to get hung up on the levels because at school, you know, we progress from GCSE maybe onto A levels, or at college, we might do a level 2 course, then a level 3 course. And so the assumption is that the next level will be the next level up. But it doesn't always work that way with apprenticeships because it depends on the sector and what the employer wants. So it is quite feasible that you might start an apprenticeship at level 2, but you may have completed A levels, or you may complete A levels and do an apprenticeship at level 3. So it really does just depend. So it's important to keep that in mind and to keep options open, because we have come across some young people who have applied only for 1 or 2 higher apprenticeships after doing their A levels, but unfortunately haven't achieved the entry requirements for the role, and so they can't do the apprenticeship. So we would encourage students to apply for lots of options, so lots of different levels, just to see what's out there and keep their options open so that when they get their results in August, they've got lots of choices to make. Okay. So if we look at the range of apprenticeships, as you can see on the slide, there's a whole range of different apprenticeships available out there. Now, there may be some that you're already familiar with. We're often familiar with plumbing and electrical installation as apprenticeships, and some of the other construction trades, and they have brilliant apprenticeships in these areas. But there's also lots of new apprenticeships in exciting areas that you might not even know exist. And so there's some of them on the screen for you. I think Nikki earlier mentioned law. That's now possible to do some apprenticeships in law, and there are some examples on the screen that you can see. So it'll give you this slide gives you an idea of the huge range of apprenticeships that are available. And as I said before, there's over 600 different apprenticeship standards available. So really, you could start an apprenticeship in any area. And the range of employers that offer apprenticeships, as you can see on the screen, is really vast as well. Now, this slide shows you some of the big apprenticeship providers that you will be very familiar with, and you can look at their websites and find information, follow them on social media, and see what opportunities there are. Now, around 50% of apprenticeships are with large companies like the ones you can see on the screen, but there's also 50% with smaller local companies. And sometimes it can be tempting to think, oh, the best apprenticeships are just with the big companies that we all know. But some of the smaller companies and employers also have brilliant schemes that enable career progression. So it's really important to do your research and not to ignore the smaller employers, because they can be just as good. Okay. So when you're looking at companies, it's very easy to think, oh well, if I want to go and do an accounting apprenticeship, then I will go to one of the accounting or finance firms, which of course you can do. But also, lots of big companies have their own apprenticeship schemes. So even though that might not be their main business, you may find that they do have a finance department and they do take on apprenticeships. So it's worth looking inside the company. Oh, excuse me. So for example, at Coca-Cola, it's possible to work as a solicitor. In Vauxhall, car manufacturer, it's possible to work as a web designer. And you could work as a cybersecurity apprenticeship for the government. So there really are lots of opportunities. So, look inside the company as well. So I had a look last week at the range of different vacancies that were available in the Oxford area. And you can see this on the screen. So within Oxford, within a 5-mile radius, there were 69 vacancies for apprenticeships. Then if you increase the mileage, you can see that the vacancies increase. And the further you go, the more vacancies there are. So it's important to think about that. And also when, if you've got a young person that is considering an apprenticeship, they do need to think about how far they are prepared to travel for work each day, because it's quite different from going to school, where maybe there's a school bus that picks up and drops off, or, maybe mum, dad, or someone in the family will do that drop off. When it's at work, there might be an early start, a later start, whatever. So it's really important to think about the distance that it might take to get there. And that's where the search function by mileage can really help. So it's important to think about that, and we will look at where you find apprenticeships. So how do you find an apprenticeship? You may be wondering. Well, you can register on the website, Find an Apprenticeship. And if you put that into the search engine, a Google search, it will come up as the first link. It's an official government site, so it's on the gov.uk website. And once you register, you'll receive an account activation code by email. And after activating the code, then you can start applying for apprenticeship vacancies. And it's a really good idea to just have a look at the wide range of jobs that are being advertised, because there may be jobs that you haven't even thought about actually, or don't even know about. But it's important to remember it's a live job site. So you might need to try a few different searches or broaden how far you're looking to find jobs that you may be interested in. Now, the number of job vacancies may be down at the moment. We've had a bit of a dip because of the whole pandemic, but things are looking up as the economy recovers. But, you know, it can be disheartening if your young person's looking for vacancies and they're not finding very many. But, you know, just to keep encouraging them, don't worry, keep looking. These jobs come up anytime. So just keep an eye on it, really. Also, get them to start applying for jobs that interest them. Some of the bigger companies actually start their recruitment quite early in the year. So they might start advertising in the autumn for jobs to start the following year in September. So don't leave it all to the last minute, or they may be disappointed and have missed out on a great opportunity. So, you know, just keep on top of these. Recruitment timeframes have changed over the few years, but you can keep on top of this. But actually, why not let the technology just work for you and do it for you? So you can set up alerts, and that's a great feature of this system. So you set up an alert, manage your settings, and so you will get text messages and emails when jobs that are of interest to you pop up. And that's a great way. It's a very time efficient way to do it. So let the technology work for you. Now, employers are always telling us that the applicants that stand out to them are the ones that have made that little bit more of an effort. So, you know, if your young person is considering contacting the company and asking them if they've got any virtual open days coming up or any other opportunities to engage with them, that's a really positive thing to do. It will look impressive on their application, might even give them an advantage over other applicants. So where else can you look? So you can use the Find an Apprenticeship website. That's a great place to start, but it isn't the only place. So as I said before, have a look on the company websites. More or less every single company these days, no matter if it's big or small, has a website. And see if you can sign up for recruitment alerts or if they send out a newsletter. And on these big websites, they have a dedicated site just for careers, particularly the big companies. And so that might be visible on their homepage, but if it isn't, just scroll right down to the bottom of the screen and you will usually find a link there saying careers, and then that will route you through and it will tell you what jobs are available there and what apprenticeship programs they have. And so if you follow the companies on social media using Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you may find that their vacancies are advertised there because they're trying to reach out and get as many people to apply for jobs because they want a diverse workforce. That's the best way, isn't it? To have a range of different people working for you. And there are lots of other job sites out there too that you can use, and you can flick through some of the online profiles of the top apprentice employers. So do spend time looking into different types of employers. Also check the local council website because there may be a page specifically for young people on that. Okay. So I guess another question you might be thinking is, well, you know, how can I tell it's a good apprenticeship? You know, you want best for your child, your young person. You know, what's the best apprenticeship out there? Well, the answer is it's personal to each person and the employer. But we have got a few hints and tips for you. So the first thing is, what are they actually being paid? Now, we're not saying that the highest paying employers are the best or that the lowest paying are the worst. But a fair wage is an encouraging indicator that the employer is willing to invest in their staff. So remember, employers are able to pay apprenticeships the national minimum wage for apprentices, which is £4.30 an hour, and that's different from the national minimum wage. But it should also be considered against the industry standard and what what different pay scales there are. So you will find that sometimes they are paid more. It's also important to look at progression. What are the progression opportunities? You know, if the employer discusses progression on their website, then there's a great chance that they will want to keep the apprentice on afterwards. So do your research, check out the websites and see what the success stories are. Also, is it a fixed term position or a permanent position? If it's a fixed term position, will there be the chance for a permanent position to move on to when the apprenticeship is completed? You could also have a look at what training provider they're using. So training providers, just like schools, are rated by Ofsted, and that can be a good way to check. You can also have a look at their website and see if they've got apprenticeship success stories too. You might also want to look at the role. Is it varied? Read the job description, see if the employer offers the opportunity to rotate around the business and get involved in a variety of projects. And finally, which is possibly the most important one, what is the employer's ethos and their values? Usually they'll have this on their website. You can get an idea from their social media channels, how they share communications and their values. And, you know, what type of employer does your child want to work for? Are they the kind of employer your child wants to work for? And what else do they do around the apprenticeship or current apprenticeships? Do they have support networks available? How do they support diversity and inclusion? These are all things that are quite important to get you and your child to get a feel for the employer and the commitment and support they will give to apprentices. So in terms of resources, as Nikki said, there's some resources that are available to you that you can get attached to this webinar this evening, but there's also other things that you can have access to. So there's parents magazines which are produced by Amazing Apprenticeships, and they're available on apprenticeships.gov.uk. They're really useful. They contain lots of different articles and guidance, including information on apprenticeships, as well as other technical pathways like traineeships and T-levels. Your school may circulate this to you, but you can subscribe to it yourself by visiting amazingapprenticeships.com. We also have a fact sheet for parents that's been translated into 5 different languages, including Arabic, Latvian, Pashto, Romanian, and Urdu. So, you know, that's a great resource. You can pass that on to people who speak those languages, so that can help them too. And you can download those from apprenticeships.gov.uk. I think if you take a screenshot with your camera, that QR code there will actually take you straight to that web place. And then for more information, you can go to amazingapprenticeships.com. There really is lots of information out there. There's some brilliant resources, and the website to go to is showing on the screen now, so do take a note of that. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Catherine. That was a great overview of apprenticeships and all the various levels, and fantastic again opportunities and where to find them. So really helpful. Thank you. I'm now going to pass over to Ellie, who, as I said before, is currently in an apprentice at the University of Oxford in their finance division. So Ellie, are you there? Brilliant. Over to you. Right.
No, yeah, you're still on mute, Ellie. Do you want to try pressing again? Oh, hang on.
Perfect, thank you.
There we go.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, so hi everyone, my name's Ellie Knight and I'm a level 3 HR support apprentice and I work for the University of Oxford within the finance division. So So this is just a little bit about my journey and kind of how I got to where I am now. So I left school in 2019 with my GCSEs, and I trialled A-levels at my school's sixth form for about 2 weeks before realising that that was definitely not what I wanted to do for 2 years, and I really didn't feel like that was my path. I just thought I would have been doing that for the sake of it, so I chose to make a change. So I then transferred to Abingdon Witney College to complete a level 3 events and tourism course. And I know that might seem a bit random. And to be honest with you, I didn't do that for any particular reason. It sounded interesting, so I thought I'd try it out. And I did actually really enjoy that course. But I then found my level 3 business administration apprenticeship. So it was about halfway through my first year, and I decided to apply simply because the job role seemed really appealing to me, and I kind of thought, why not? It seemed like a really great opportunity, and I'm glad I did, because I got invited for interview and then I accepted the position. So alongside starting this apprenticeship in March 2020, so that was a week into lockdown, just for a bit of context, I completed my first year qualification of the events and tourism course and gained a BTEC in business. So that was alongside starting the apprenticeship. So it was quite a lot to handle at first, but I think once I completed the college course, I was really glad I did it, because then that kind of year of college didn't go to waste. And then I recently completed my business administration apprenticeship in December 2021, and I gained a distinction grade for that apprenticeship. So moving on to my current apprenticeship. So where I am now. So at the start of January this year, I began my level 3 CIPD as a level 3 HR support apprentice. So I still work for the university, and I'm still within the finance division. So again, moving on to why I chose an apprenticeship. So I'd always liked the idea of an apprenticeship, but when I was at school, I didn't have really any information about apprenticeships. I didn't have any of the resources that I see that are available now for school leavers, which I think is really great it's available, because yeah, like I say, when I was at school, I just didn't really have the information. And yeah, as I've mentioned, that is why I tried a couple of other routes before I found my apprenticeship. And I mean, for me personally, I am more of a hands-on and visual learner, so I definitely learn a lot better putting things into practice rather than just learning solely based in a classroom. So I knew quite early on in secondary school that I didn't want to go to university and essentially rack up debt for a degree that I didn't truly want to do. I didn't want to go to university for the sake of it, and I didn't have any kind of particular career in mind. So for me, university was kind of never an option, and I obviously wanted to find a different route to go down. So I instead chose to earn and learn as an apprentice. So I now have nearly 2 years of experience in business administration, and I will have 18 months of experience in HR at the end of my current apprenticeship. So moving on to my support during my apprenticeships, which I just like to say, support, I think when you're doing an apprenticeship is so important, because I think it can be really easy to, I think, feel overwhelmed because you are holding down a full-time job as well as studying. But my employer and my training provider provided amazing support, all the support I needed. And obviously I've also mentioned my family, because they've been really supportive of my decision to go down the apprenticeship route from the start, because obviously it isn't the traditional route to go down, but they were really supportive, which I think really helped. And then yeah, so as I've mentioned, my manager, my team at work they have been amazing. And I know exactly who I can go to if I need help, and exactly who I can go to if I've got any questions or I don't fully understand something. So excuse me, moving on to the future for me. So at the moment, I'm due to finish my HR apprenticeship in June 2023. So my goal for when I finish that apprenticeship is to land a permanent HR admin role in another department, still working for the university. And then beyond that, I have thought a little bit, but not, I haven't got kind of my future set in stone at the moment. And I think I may at some point decide to complete a level 5 CIPD, but I think if I am going to do that, I'm definitely going to give myself a break from studying before taking that on. So moving on to some advice. So if you are considering an apprenticeship, these are my top tips. So just do your research. It's so important to know what type of apprenticeships are available, because as Catherine has mentioned, there are so many out there. And you know, once you have one in mind that you want to do, it's really important to do research, because you want to ensure that you are going to enjoy that, and that the role and responsibilities are something that you think you can manage. And obviously future careers. So if you have got a future career in mind that you wanted to do, make sure that the apprenticeship you want to complete will help you achieve that future career, and that, you know, you're not just doing an apprenticeship for the sake of it and then finishing the apprenticeship and realizing you've kind of got no idea where to go next, and it won't help you for that future career. So yeah, it's just so important to research. Thank you for listening. I'll now hand over to Helen and Jane.
I think you're both still on mute.
Perfect, thank you. It wasn't working, the button. Brilliant. Hi everybody, great to be here this evening. We can move on to the next slide actually, and we can kick off with introductions. Thank you, perfect. So I'm Helen Johnson, and I am the Apprenticeship Manager at Oxford University, and we're very proud to be here today to be supporting, and we're very proud of Ellie, who you've just heard from as well, and all the fantastic work she's done to date. She's one of our amazing ambassadors, and she gets involved in anything that is offered to her. So yeah, she's doing so well with us. Jane?
And I'm Jane Phipps, so I'm a business development executive, and I'm really proud to have been part of Ellie's journey with the college as the training provider. She's done exceptionally well, and is a good ambassador, obviously, for apprenticeships generally.
Thanks, Jane. Next slide, please.
Okay, so just to tell you a little bit about the college, you may not know much about Abingdon Witney College. We've got a number of campuses across Oxfordshire, the main one being in Abingdon. You can see there on the left. We've got a Witney campus as well, with lots of programmes coming out of there, and we've got apprentices being trained in both of those, as well as our Common Lease Farm campus, which is just north of Witney in Hayley. Lots of agriculture up there, but we do apprenticeships in horticulture from that one. We've got a new campus up in Bicester, our new Bicester Construction Skills Centre. It's absolutely brand shiny new, lots of plumbing, construction, that sort of thing from there. And then we've also got two campuses or two sites available to us in Oxford and Kidlington that we use as well. Next slide, please. So just for a bit of context, we've got about 1,650 16 to 19-year-olds on full-time courses across the college. We've got around about 500 apprentices, and that number is growing as we speak, I think. 250 plus higher education students, and we work in conjunction with Oxford Brookes for those. We've got 8,000 adult learners, so we train in all sorts of fun courses as well as more academic ones for adult learners. And then we've got about 250 plus special educational needs students as well. Next slide, please. So we're a great fan of winning awards. We've got quite a number under our belt, and you know, some of the really good ones to shout about tonight particularly are that we are the Business and Administration Apprenticeship Provider of the Year nationally. That was an award we won in June. So due to COVID, we couldn't go to the award ceremony, but still. Same for engineering and manufacturing, Apprenticeship Provider of the Year last year. And then we've been recognised for various other things, which you can see there on the screen. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Jane. So just to tell you a few things about the university, so we currently have about 180 apprentices on programme, and that is a mixture of new entrant apprentices and existing staff. So we have a number of apprentices that come directly into us, much like Ellie did, straight from school, but we also have a huge number of apprentices that are all different ages. So I think our youngest is 16. We've got some 16-year-olds, and Ellie was 16 when she joined us. And we've got people that are doing an apprenticeship that are in their kind of 50s as well. So it's fantastic to see that people are utilising it. With apprentices, you can go on to do another apprenticeship, much like Ellie does, but you can also be a permanent employee within the university and go and do an apprenticeship as well. We offer a huge wide range of apprenticeships, so we're obviously partner with Abingdon Witney College, but we actually do have a number of other training providers that we partner with as well. Abingdon Witney are our main training provider, and they cover a broad spectrum, which we'll come on to in just a second. But we probably have about 25 other training providers that we work for. So we try to allow as many different apprenticeships as possible. The university is really diverse in terms of what's available in terms of apprenticeships and roles that people probably aren't even aware of. So that could be anything from kind of the business admin, the HR finance, to horticultural, to chefs, and to engineering and plumbing. So we really do cover a wide range of them. We're really proud that over 90% of our apprentices stay with us after their apprenticeship, and they either go on to another apprenticeship or they get a permanent role within a department. We have a large number of employees. We have over 14,000, I think now is the latest figures. So there are plenty of opportunities to take a role, and we are delighted that people do want to stay with us after apprenticeship. We offer more than just an apprenticeship programme, and it's something that we're always reviewing and always trying to develop further. So much like the things that Ellie is doing, and for anyone that saw last night's session with Tony Yan, one of our ambassadors, we really do try to provide more than just the apprenticeship programme and the job. So we try to provide that network, interpersonal skills, then being a role model, and a huge number of other things that we either do or we're looking to introduce as well. We have recently won, University of Oxford won the Oxfordshire Apprenticeship Awards last year, which we're really proud to have won, and we have been a top 100 apprentice employer for the last 3 years, which is really fantastic.
Do you want me to take this one?
Yeah,
so this is a kind of a list of all of the current apprenticeships that we offer. So you can see it's quite a wide range, as Helen said, and there are only 3 there that we don't work on with the university currently. So there's quite a broad spectrum there for people to apply for with the university through Abingdon and Witney. Okay, so I think that Catherine's already touched on the levels of apprenticeships, and it can be really confusing for parents and carers especially, because you automatically think you move on to the next level because you've already done a level 2 or a level 3, you would go on to the next level like you do through school. It really doesn't work like that with apprenticeships, because not only are you learning the knowledge, you also have to become really experienced in a job role before you can move on to the next level. So you have to be competent in one level before you can move to the next. So we often get situations where somebody's come off their level 3 A-levels, but they started as an accountant, and they start at the beginning, as you would. So they have to start at level 2, move on to level 3, then on to level 4 if they want to. So don't be put off if you see that, you know, your son or daughter or whoever is actually being offered an apprenticeship that's lower than a level that they've already completed. Sometimes it's packaged up by training providers as a level 3, but it also includes a level 2 within it. So just don't be too put off by that. It's like any job, you start from scratch, you learn from the beginning and build on that. Okay, so basically in practice you're going to be developing new skills within an apprenticeship, and there has to be significant scope for new skills in any kind of job role. You need to be in a relevant job role, and it's really important that we think about the type of roles that are on offer. So I know, Helen, for example, you are really careful with your job roles, that you're looking at them in detail to make sure that there is enough scope in that role for the apprentice to gain all of the knowledge, the skills and the behaviours they're going to need to be able to prove their competence at the end of the apprenticeship when they get to endpoint assessment. I know that that's the case, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We're not here to set people up to fail. We want to ensure that they're in a role that really allows them to develop and grow in their roles.
Absolutely. So we also, obviously the apprenticeship, it's training that's done in work hours, it's in contracted working hours. So most of the actual learning training is all done within your daily job. Time is set aside for that apprentice to do any college work. They ring fence time for that, so you're not coming home and then starting work again late at night like you would be with other things. It is a big learning curve being in an apprenticeship, because it is holding down a full-time job, but also that training. And with any good opportunity, any good job, you're going to be learning anyway. So, but we say that there must be at least 20% of the job training in that job. So that includes everything they learn about how to do the job. So we think about, obviously, rights and responsibilities. We make sure that all of those things are covered within any apprenticeship, and that's a key part of an apprenticeship, that we look at those as well. And there is no cost to the apprentice. They can't pay for anything, so they're not allowed to pay before, during and after. If they're working in a job role that needs PPE, the employer is paying for that, and the university supply everything that's needed. So, for example, an accountancy apprentice would need some books for that, so the department would cover that. The apprentice wouldn't have to cover that themselves. But they're exactly the same as any employee. They've got the same rights, responsibilities as any other employee.
Great, thanks, Jane. So I just wanted to talk to you a bit about applying for apprentices, and it's very Catherine's obviously gone over this in a bit of detail already, so I won't focus on it too much. But for us, it's really key that you look at where we kind of are advertising it to find out about us. So we advertise our apprenticeships on our website. If it was with Abingdon Witney College, they would also be posting it on the government website for us, and they promote it through their own social media channels. We also advertise through Amazing Apprenticeships and on Rate My Apprenticeships as well. So we advertise in quite a few significant places. On our website, we have some top tips for applying, and we've got some information from parents and carers. And I know Catherine also mentioned the pack from Amazing Apprenticeships, but that is fantastic. So please do download that if you haven't got that already. And one of the key things that I really recommend, and Ellie did allude to this, is to do your research. So in every advert that we put out for an apprenticeship at university, we put a contact detail for the recruiting manager, and we also put a contact detail for the training provider. And we really, really do recommend that you reach out to both of those so that you really understand what the job role is, where you'll be working. There are some areas of the university that people aren't happy to work. An example would be, we have apprentices at the hospital, at JR Hospital, or at one of the other hospitals. And some people don't want to work in a hospital. So you really need to find out where that job is based, and find out if you're comfortable working in that environment. And reach out to the training provider and really find out about that apprenticeship. So if it's a general one, then it may be it's sometimes a bit easier, so a business admin, because it covers so many different areas. But if it was a more specific one like HR or finance, then it really is a commitment that you want to go into that sort of area and do it. So those are just some tips from us. So we do an application form. So we have recently in the past year moved our application process into our in-house system, sorry. So we used to get you to apply via the government website, but what that was not allowing us to do was control the recruitment process and look at how we can improve it and streamline it, and look at what are the candidates that are applying, and focus on our diversity and our outreach pieces that we try to focus on. So the application form does exactly what is said on the screen. So it asks you for your personal details, qualifications and training experience, and either any previous employment or experience. So that might just be from school, if you're coming direct from school. It could be that you've done some volunteering. It could be that you have done some work before as well. So that can be anything from you've been helping out your parents' work. It could be that you've done, it can be anything. So we want to hear about you. And then we ask 3 generic questions, and they are: what are your main strengths, what skills would you like to improve, and what are your hobbies and interests? And we're really looking for you to just be honest and tell us about you. It's not trick questions, it's not something for you to think that we're trying to set you up or anything like that. We just really want to know about you and what it is that you're interested in. Departments do have the ability to add 2 additional questions, and some departments do and some departments don't. 2 examples I put on there are tell us something that demonstrates your organisation skills and why do you want to be an apprentice at the university. So that's quite generic ones that we sometimes include. As I said already, read and understand the job description, but the examples that you can put can be from anything. So if you're part of a youth club, if you do guides or scouts or anything like that, or you go camping or anything like that, you know, they are all really vital skills that, you know, are key to applying for a role with us. So we want to hear about it and we want to hear about you.
So the role of the training provider, you might be wondering what we do apart from advertising the apprenticeship. So we're working really closely with the employer and we make sure that the apprenticeship is the right next step for you. So we have to tailor apprenticeships to every candidate that is successful in getting an apprenticeship. So we need to make sure that we've spoken to that candidate about the job role in detail. We do a virtual telephone interview with them, make sure that they understand what they're applying for, make sure that we understand if they've got any additional learning support needs or any you know, challenges that they need to deal with, so that we can make sure that we can accommodate that. Just making sure that we've done all of the checks behind the scenes with them and that they're happy with the apprenticeship they've applied for. If they've got any questions, they often take that opportunity to ask us about those as well. We must do English and maths assessments and a written English assessment with them at the beginning, because we need to know what their starting point is before they start that apprenticeship. And we do that for every apprentice, in fact everybody who starts a course at the college. We obviously need to do the background and qualification checks, so we might be making sure that we've got copies of records so that they don't need to produce certificates. We do something called an LRS check to make sure that we have all of that information, and we talk to the apprentice really about how it's going to work and their interview technique if it's a new thing for them. They've never done that before. So we do quite a lot of background work, background paperwork and checks before we then submit them to the university to have a look at, and then they would move the process on from there.
Thanks, Jane. So we do virtual or in-person interviews. At the minute, we're still in a bit of a transition from the pandemic, so some interviews are virtual at the minute. And we have a few different people that sit on the interview panel. We will ask questions during that interview, and there are a huge amount of examples that you can look up online and on our websites as well, and on other platforms like Amazing Apprentice to help you prepare. But what we're looking for is for you to give us examples of things. So much like the application, if we're asking for a specific thing about organisation skills, we're asking you to tell us about a time that you can demonstrate your organisation skills. But what we really want to know is why you want to join the university, and we really want you to show that to us in your interview. We sometimes do tasks, so that might be a written task, it could be replying to an email. Departments kind of decide what they want to do with that depending on what the role is, but it's not uncommon to have those sorts of things, but we tell you upfront what those are so that you have time to prepare for them and exactly what that involves. So don't let that worry you, and you also take note of those contact details in the application, and you can speak to them in more detail about it. Great. So then when you join, sorry Jane, so I'll just quickly say about the university, but it is more from your point of view. So when we join the university, you meet your department, you meet your team, you have an induction with us from an apprenticeship point of view, and you have a programme of events that you can get involved in. As I've mentioned, we are always reviewing that and including more things, but my key thing is to say that you get support from across the whole of the university, so from apprentices that are already on programme, from your department, from your line managers, from us, and from everyone. The university are absolutely committed to apprenticeship, so there is support for you throughout.
Okay, so obviously the training provider makes sure that we meet you and the department and the team at induction. So we have a training coordinator who comes out to do that induction with you, make sure that they have a conversation with both of you together. You'll get your logins, passwords. We'll introduce you to all the systems you're going to use for part of your apprenticeship to log your training, and make sure that you understand who your assessor is going to be. We'll make sure that you know who your college tutor is going to be, and we get you registered with any support, any professional bodies as well that underpin the qualifications that are in your apprenticeship. So if you're, for example, an accountancy apprentice, then we would make sure that you're registered with AAT and that you've got all your registrations and logins for those, as well as your apprenticeship portal. We plan all the details of the programme for each apprentice, and we plan them very, very carefully, making sure that you know as well, and that it's communicated to you as an apprentice where you're going to need to go, what you're going to need to do. So apprentices are really well supported right from the very beginning. It's very it's a smooth process. We have that specific induction meeting, and all of this is discussed, and if there are any questions from either the apprentice or the line manager, then that's when we would make sure that everybody knew what was happening. So just thinking about an apprenticeship, it's really to think about, what does a good apprenticeship look like? It's always a three-way communication, three-way relationship between the apprentice, who's right at the centre of everything, the employer who's providing that opportunity for work, and from the training provider as well, so that we're making sure that the training that's wrapped around your job is absolutely fit for purpose, and it's going to actually get you where you want to be by the very end of it. So the apprentice needs to find themselves a job, and we've talked a little bit, Catherine's talked us through how that might happen earlier on. The apprentice has to complete the college work. They need to help to record their training, because we need to always record their off-the-job training, the 20% of time that they're spending doing that, and it's really good to get into the habit of that from the start. They need to be able to get to work, and they need to be able to get to college, so they need to really think about that apprenticeship before they apply for it, to make sure that they can do all of those things. But again, we talk to them about that at the start. The training provider will design a training plan, so we put that training plan together in conjunction with the employer as well. We provide all the training through the college, and we obviously help the apprentice to work towards those qualifications that might be embedded within the apprenticeship as well, or the qualification might just be the overall apprenticeship, which is the case in some apprenticeships. They don't all have an extra qualification within them. We also carry out a pastoral role, so we have training coordinators who do all of that, so make sure that apprentice is really supported. They know who to go to within the college, they know who to ask if they've got any challenges, problems, anything they just want to ask, or if there's anything going on at home or elsewhere that might be affecting work, or they need time off. We're talking to them all the time about any of that. And then obviously we're making sure that they're set up for their English and maths, because if they don't already have a level 2, grade 4 or equivalent in or above in English and maths, then they need to continue to be achieving that through the apprenticeship. And then it's helping them to get to endpoint assessment, so that they know what to expect and that they're well prepared with that. So that's in a nutshell what we would do as a training provider. Helen, do you want to talk about what you would do as the employer?
Yeah, so we provide you with a contract of employment and we pay you. So it is a job and you are paid to do it. So it's very different to school and college, and so it's something to bear in mind. So you don't get school holidays, you don't get kind of the summer holidays off, and I know some people sometimes don't realise that when they come in. So it is a full-time job. You book annual leave in the same way that any other employee does. As Jane's mentioned, you know, we do support you fully through that. We help with the training plan, and we obviously are there to help support you with your apprentice. And we ensure that the training providers are the quality of the apprenticeships is what we expect, and we kind of have a robust feedback loop to ensure that that happens at all times.
And I want to just go through and just talk to you a little bit about endpoint assessment. I won't dwell on it too long because this is something that happens at the end. But it's important to know that with all apprenticeships now, the apprenticeship standards have a practical training period where you're doing all of your training for a length of time, and it might be different depending on the apprenticeship that you're on. But then there's always the point at the end where you get assessed by an independent external assessor from an awarding organisation. And there are various methods of assessment. So that's when you can really show off your skills, really show your competence and get that grade that you achieve, that you want to achieve. And with all of the new apprenticeships, there is a chance to show that your distinction level status. So with the old apprenticeships, it was a pass or fail. Now you can work towards merit or merit and distinction, and it's a great way to show that you're competent in your job role. So quite often you might get a practical test, or you might get a professional discussion, a knowledge test. It's usually multiple choice, but you'll know from the beginning what you're going to get, so there'll be no surprises. Okay, next slide, please.
Okay. So I've already sort of mentioned the stats with regards to how many people stay with the university after apprenticeship, and there are so many routes for you to go down. Some people decide not to stay with the university, and that's absolutely fine, because what we're there for is to give you a career platform. But what we do hope is that if you do decide to leave us, that you go and work somewhere else, gain some further experience, and then maybe you come back to us in a couple of years' time into a different role, into a different area. So the relationship doesn't end, and we're really keen to have you back in, and we like to follow your story. So we like you to share your story, and we like you to engage with that, but we're here to provide you with a career pathway and career development.
And as a training provider, we always do an exit review with every apprentice, and we understand what they're going on to next, so that we make sure that if it's something we can help with, it might be another apprenticeship they want to go on to. If they're not staying with the university or their employer, we can help them with that. We make sure that we get feedback from every learner so that we can continue to improve our service to everybody. We keep in touch with them, because it's important to know that your apprentice that started off as a level 2 in horticulture has gone on to be, something, some bigger role, perhaps, within horticulture or moving on. It's really good for us to see where people have gone to, and to be able to use that information. And just really, we continue to keep in touch and support if we can.
Great. Thank you, everybody. And I think we're handing back to Nikki now. Sorry, we went on a bit.
No, not at all. It's so useful, everything you explained. I think what we wanted to give people a really good view of how well they're supported by an employer, and by how well young people are supported by their employer and their training provider while they're going through that apprenticeship. Because it's a big change from full-time education. So it's great to hear, all the different ways that that's looked at, and how they're looked after through that whole process, and how there's a real want for obviously them to go on and do really well. And just to reiterate, as I was saying at the beginning, we are so fortunate in Oxfordshire. We have so many employers offering this type of opportunity, and numerous training providers as well who really do support you through, some great training, and that additional support that Jane's been talking about. So Mel, I don't know if we have any questions at all from the audience. Now is the time for any Q&A.
We do have a couple of questions. If anybody else has any, please type them in and we will ask them to our panellists. The first question is probably for you, Catherine. It's about apprenticeships being advertised. So do all apprenticeships appear on the government website, or is that just a fraction of what's available out there?
Well, there is that possibility for employers to advertise on that, and I think ideally that's where they should go. But obviously there's lots of different other places. So there's apprenticeships.gov.uk. I think Helen mentioned Amazing Apprenticeships, and also Rate My Apprenticeship. You'll find vacancies advertised there. There's also Not Going to Uni, which is another platform that does advertise apprenticeships. And obviously you've got the college websites. So all the colleges like Abingdon and Witney, they've got their apprenticeship links that you can look at, and they have vacancies advertised there, as do other colleges as well. So it's always worth checking there. And also the company websites, if they're advertising a vacancy on the government website, they will probably also have it advertised on their own portal as well. So it's worth checking a few different places, not just relying on the government one, but the government one's got that alert system, which is great, so saves time.
Can I also highlight that we're very lucky in Oxfordshire, we've got the Oxme website as well, which is supported by Oxfordshire County Council. So that's Oxme, I think it's oxme.co.uk. Mel, correct me if I'm wrong, but they do also take all the vacancies from the government website and put them on there that are based in Oxfordshire, and they also get them directly from employers as well. So they're another good website specifically if you're looking in Oxfordshire to go and look at. That's Oxme, O-X-M-E.
Yeah, Nikki, it's oxme.info, the Oxme website. They also have a page on there where you can sign up to receive newsletters, which they'll send you weekly updates, including apprenticeships, other education opportunities and volunteering. So that's well worth doing as well, even just to get some ideas.
Yeah, the links in the handouts as well, isn't it, Mel? So if you download the handouts, or when they come through after today's webinar, then you can get their links in the handouts as well.
Yes, we've put a link. It's a list of 10 different links with various ones that Catherine mentioned, and some other useful links as well for you. Another quick question, I think for you, Ellie, what's the thing that you most enjoy about your apprenticeship that perhaps people might not realise about apprenticeships?
I think that's a difficult one because there are just so many things I've enjoyed, but I think honestly I'd have to say that I kind of didn't really realise how much I would learn. So obviously, you know, with the studies and everything, but like every single day is different, and every single day I learn a new thing. And you know, some things I learn, they're such minor things, but you just kind of, it didn't even cross my mind some of these things that I would learn that then become part of my sort of everyday, you know, responsibilities. And yeah, I just think the amount that you can learn during an apprenticeship is just immense. So yeah, that's definitely the thing I've enjoyed the most and am enjoying the most.
Thank you, Ellie. Do you mind telling us where you found your apprenticeship?
Yeah, of course. So my mum would be happy to hear this because she actually found my apprenticeship. So you know, she came across it by accident, and she kind of told me about it and said this would be great. And you know, I read it, and she actually found it on the university's website, which then I think it then took her through to the gov.uk website. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, it was kind of an accidental find. But she was looking for another job for somebody else, and she came across it and suggested it, and you know, here I am now. So yeah.
Fantastic. Here we go, parents and carers. Great stuff. Another quick question's come in. How many hours does a typical apprentice work in a week? Not sure if that perhaps is one for you, Helen.
Yeah, so it's a full-time job. Generally, it's a full-time job. So we generally work sort of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday is kind of what the model is. You would have one day out at college, so 20% of your time, so basically one day a week, you spend on your apprenticeship specifically. So for Ellie, that would be going to college one day a week, but for others, it might be kind of across the week. It might not be kind of a whole day. So yeah, so we generally work that. Some apprenticeships might be less, but it's generally most of them are kind of, yeah, a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 sort of model.
Thank you. Following on for that, this might be one for you, Jane, because I know you deal with lots of different types of apprenticeships. What's the typical length of an apprenticeship? Do they vary in terms of the number of years that somebody has to commit?
Yes. So from the basic length of time would be around sort of 15-16 months, because you've got virtually a year of training and then your endpoint assessment time. But you know, they vary considerably. Some are 2 years long, some are, we've got one, the Chartered Manager Degree Apprenticeship, which is 42 months, so a year and a half, 3.5 years, because it's a degree and you're doing a degree while you're doing your job role. You know, things like accountancy, you might be doing a year for each virtually, but then with the extra time for endpoint assessment. So I think the minimum really would be probably about 15-16 months for the smallest length of time.
Thank you, Jane. I think, conscious of time, but I think we've got time for just one more question. If there's any specific questions in the chat, we will come back to you and reply to those. But this one might be of interest to more people as well. You mentioned degree apprenticeships, Jane.
Yeah.
Do people find those on the same websites as you would find all the other levels of apprenticeships, or do you have to go through a process like you do for UCAS?
No, you can you find them on the same websites. So the training provider sets up the degree apprenticeship, and they're working in conjunction usually with the people that offer that degree. So, you know, and you know, it doesn't have to be as complicated as a UCAS application. So they're applying for the job first, and then we wrap that training around it.
Great, thank you. Just one more quick question, if we may. This one is for Helen. Helen, what do you feel is the difference between someone doing an apprenticeship and a graduate joining on a grad programme in terms of their career progression prospects?
Yeah, so I think it's just really different in terms of what it is that you want to get out of it. So they're just two very, very different routes. So an apprenticeship is, you know, you're coming in, you're working and you're learning kind of on the job training. Whereas if you're coming in to just do a degree at the university, then you are you're just studying and you're not working, so you're not gaining those employment skills at the same time, those kind of professional skills that you gain when you're learning on the job. So it's more about kind of personal choice and kind of preference of what it is that you want to do. So yeah, it is completely down to individuals. Some people really want to go to university because of the kind of social aspect and the social life and those sorts of things. You still get that with an apprenticeship, but I guess not to the same level that you would if you were kind of a university student, so to speak.
That might be one for Ellie. Ellie, do you still get a social life?
Yeah, definitely. I feel as if as soon as I finish my week, my weekend is totally separate from work. So I really feel like I still have the same social life that I would if I was at university. So yeah, I definitely don't think it's impacted on that in any way.
Brilliant, thank you, Ellie. I think that's all the questions. Maybe hand back over to you, Nikki.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you all so much. Thank you very much for all our presenters tonight and for answering those questions. Then thank you for all of the parents and carers who've attended. We will be putting this will go on YouTube, on the Oxlep YouTube pages. So if you do have anyone else that you want to share this information with, you think should listen in to the webinar, then the recording will go onto that. So please do point people towards that. But we hope that's been a really informative session. And yes, thank you all for attending and enjoy the rest of your evening.